Happy Tuesday, everyone. Welcome to TheStreet Live. I'm Jeff Mark, Senior Portfolio Analyst at Action Alerts Plus. I'm standing live on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange with Jim Cramer. Jim, we got to talk all about your interview with CEO ARON. But before we do, let's get a little pulse on the markets. We are seeing some green today. What are you watching?
This is one of those strange days. There were a lot of technicians who felt that this market was about to roll over, and a lot of it was based on, there was just repeated head and shoulder patterns. Now, we are much more fundamentalists here, but I think a lot of people got short. Jeff, a lot of people got short again, and when they get short and they don't get what they want, which was the idea that the Fed was going to raise instantly off the big employment number, they cover. This is a cover day.
We're going to talk a little bit about FEDSPEAK a little bit later on, but before we do, let's talk about one of the stocks that the shorts loved and the shorts got crushed on, and that is AMC. So you just interviewed CEO ARON. Let's talk about the quarter itself. So a smaller loss than expected, and he's also talking about they could go free cash flow positive by Q4. So before we talk about some of the initiatives that he's going to be playing with when they're looking to play some offense, let's talk about the quarter itself. What do you think from AMC?
The quarter was good. I mean, the cash flow was good. They're still burning cash, remember, and he says that. This is an unbelievably good conference call. Still burning cash, still needing many more people to go, but they've raised prices, they've streamlined, they've used this period to close the underperformers. So they're making much, I would say like this is something he said, making much more per person who goes. So even though you see that the number of people are about half of where they were, the people who do go spend more. So and they've raised prices. So you've got a kind of a really virtuous circle going on there. The only negative story that I found after trying to poke holes, obviously, was Disney. Was that Disney Plus took Black Widow. But he made the point, I mean, I said, look, I loved watching Black Widow at home, and what do you tell you? This is like to go out to the movie theaters. And he produces evidence that, wait a second, it's still, people love going to theaters. I mean, Adam was the CEO of Norwegian Cruise, CEO of the 76ers, CEO of Vail, and CEO of Starwood. Successful everywhere. So people keep talking about how lucky he is. How about how successful he's been? And he figured out how to raise $5 billion by taking advantage of the fact that the apes, the memes, whatever you want to call them, liked it. And in this particular case, it worked. I mean, think about it. He needed to raise capital. They gave him the capital by bidding the stock up, and he saved the company with the capital because he needed the $5 billion. So the idea that you should value him versus Cinemark or about IMAX is fatuous, because what he did was come up with a strategy to take advantage of a high share price that has made it so he can live to play till 2026. 2026 he's got till.
Right, and he's been pretty big on Twitter talking about how now that they raised all this capital, now they can play some offense. Right. And one interesting point from the conference call was how...
Wait a second. Just a sec. Let's see.
Yeah, so one interesting point
from the conference call to me.
That who is that?
Adam. What's he doing?
Well, you just had him on, so I guess... Well, look, one thing from the conference call...
Well, we know him. We're Philadelphians, okay? Yes. He was a Galloping Ghost. I was a Springfield Spartan.
So Abington High and Springfield.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm going to text him, And what bothers me is that people don't understand. This is a guy, he's friends with Sonnenfeld, Ash Carter, the former Secretary of Defense. He's been around. He's 67. Of course, he's diversifying. People hate the fact that he's selling stock. What I'm presenting is a guy, a man of the world, a person of the world, who people think, again, is just like, he's got some crazy stock and he's doing it. Jeff, he is a business person, one of the greatest business people I've ever met.
And it sounds like now there hasn't been any formal talks yet, but there might be some interest in reaching out to Ryan Cohen of GameStop, because, I mean, you could have streaming video game events in the movie theaters. Laser tag, I think, was one of the points I mentioned on the conference call.
I tried to hit him when he said, look, I said, if you need more capital to do that, then you should raise capital now. And he said, well, listen, we do not need to raise capital. We have a lot of cash, 100 years, the most cash. But what I thought was interesting was when I said, well, why don't you call Ryan Cohen? Why don't you call him? And he hasn't. Now, I don't get that. Why bring it up? Why do the Bitcoin? Why? Showman. because he's a showman. And what we need in this business are more, not showmen, but successful showmen. There have been 2 showmen that I've had to deal with in my life. Adam Aron and John Legere from T-Mobile. Very successful people. You can be a showman and be great, but most people are shy, or they're run by lawyers. They're all lawyered up. Neither of those 2 guys were lawyered up, and I think it's very interesting that they were both, are incredibly successful.
What do you think about Elon Musk as a showman? He was on the show itself, Saturday Night Live.
Total showman. Total showman. Who else do we have? We have Elon. Let's do some thinking. We have Elon Musk. We have Adam Aron. We've got John Legere. Do we have any other real showman? Think about it. Benioff? Is Benioff a showman? Nah. Benioff's a hitter.
Sure. He's definitely a hitter.
Well, these other guys are hitters, but Benioff, right. I'm talking about guys who come on and are having the time of their lives,
I was going to say visionary, you could say Jensen Huang.
Jensen Huang, but I'm talking about time of their lives CEOs. How about, Portnoy's not the CEO. Snowden is the CEO there, but
at Barstool Sports, yeah. So I mentioned Elon Musk. Let's talk a little bit about Tesla. So their China delivery numbers came in. It was about 69% down from June. Now, there's some seasonality that has to play in that, but we have been hearing, this is in China, but we have been hearing also some growing concerns about competition in the region. So, Jim, how much do you think competition is going to hurt Tesla, if it will hurt Tesla over the next couple of years? There's a lot of interest in EVs right now from some other players.
I need to know more about why that number was down so much, because one of the things that I often find with Elon Musk is you'll make a judgment and it'll turn out that there was something that you didn't know. He always seems to confound us. I won't back away from that stock. I think that stock's fine.
All right, Jim, let's talk a little bit about Moderna next. It's obviously a stock that really the whole the whole world has been closely watching. So shares had another very strong day yesterday off of 2 approvals, one in Australia, one in Switzerland for their COVID-19 vaccine. What do you think about Moderna? And let's just go into the regular Delta landscape right now.
There are 2 people I really trust on COVID, but only 2. I trust Dr. Gottlieb, former head of the FDA, on the board of Illumina, and more important, Pfizer, who is CNBC's guy. And then Dr. Eric Topol, I've known forever, who's just fantastic. And I checked in with Topol yesterday, and he said, listen, once you see these drugs be approved regular, not emergency, you will see a giant rush to get a booster for AMC. So you suddenly have, rather than thinking that the numbers are going to tail off, suddenly you have a second wind. And I think that a lot of people short Moderna, feeling that it was one and done. And now it looks like something that they can charge a lot for that will be around for a while. And anyone who had Moderna is going to have to get a 3rd shot. Same thing with Pfizer, by the way. So you've got an annuity coming. And a lot of people didn't realize that they were going to have to, after 8 months, get a new one. And so I think that that's one of the reasons why it's moved up. Now, when I met with Bancel, I met with him several times. Bancel, very interestingly, has targeted cancer vaccines. Having someone who, I'm running a trial at NYU, 25 people for a tinnitus drug. And can I just tell you, it's a fortune to run a trial. But think about all the money they will have to run trials for every kind of cancer. So you're now looking at a cancer powerhouse. A lot of people are saying to me, well, it's worth more than Merck. Well, you know what? Merck has Keytruda. But how about if you had a vaccine that made it so you didn't need Keytruda? So I think that the big worry I had with Moderna was that they wouldn't have enough money to do all the things they need to do. Well, that's off the table. So Moderna's an interesting stock.
Yeah, it really is incredible, as you mentioned. It's right in there in the same market cap with Merck. Now, Jim, last night on Mad Money, you talked about this notion of lazy investing, becoming lazy. It really has to deal with a selling philosophy. One stock you talked about was Nucor. You talked about how at Action Alerts Plus, we bought it a little bit early, bought it all the way down at around $90. And now that it's come roaring back, all the way back above now that purchase price. You argued that maybe the first instinct would be to sell, but it would be lazy to sell because that steel cycle still has so many legs to it. It's a multi-year story now. So my question to you though is, a lot of questions we get asked is when is the right time to sell? So when would be a right time to sell a stock in general?
The fundamentals have changed. Let's do Nike, Eli Lilly, and Waste Management. All three had something that we were worried about, okay? Worried about China and Waste Management and whether the business was that good. Lilly worried about their whether they really did have an Alzheimer's drug, and I got to tell you, well, they did, and I was worried about Nike in China. Think about this, once it turned out that those worries were gone, you have seen skyrockets. I been reluctant to go back in Nike after we found out that China wasn't a problem, but I knew it was going to go up big. And sometimes what you have to do is you got to say to yourself, all right, I didn't stay for the big thing, but you know what? This now has a story that's going to last. I didn't think Lilly would continue at this pace because I didn't think that Lilly's story was as good as Biogen's. But if things change for the better, you got to get back in. And in Nucor, things change for the better. So my whole idea of selling wasn't linked to the company. It was linked to my emotions. And that's a terrible reason to sell. And it turned out that Nucor is so not done in its rally. It can go so much further. It's a very big deal.
All right, Jim, lastly, FedSpeak, it's always on the top of minds of investors. Now, yesterday, Raphael Bostic, Atlanta Fed president, he was talking about how he's looking for a Q4 start to the taper, but if we do see continued strength in the labor market, in that recovery in jobs, that might be a reason to start tapering any sooner. Now, we do have that big Jackson Hole meeting later this month. How much should investors be paying attention to what the Fed has to say right now and in general?
Obviously, we always have to pay attention, but we don't want to be blind. I feel that there are way too many people, even some in the media, who just don't understand that companies control their destiny far more than the Fed controls the destiny of the company. And when you have a company like a Costco, I mentioned that in the Real Money piece. Costco does not march to the beat of the Fed. It's marching to the beat of the stimulus payments. So, I mean, I find that we want to watch the Fed and always have to be aware of the Fed, but we can't make it so that we don't think of stocks separate from the Fed, because then you would have missed the whole move. And I think a lot of people. The Fed's one of those things that it's so easy to track with the speakers, with the meetings, that it becomes, again, lazy investing, lazy thinking. Oh, I've got to wait for the Fed. Oh, I've got to be sure that the Fed is on my side. I got to be sure about Jackson Hole. I got to be sure about Bostic. Well, the answer is yeah, but don't use those as a reason to stop looking for companies that are doing fabulously.
Yep, and Costco, obviously an Action Alerts Plus name. We think there's a likelihood that they may increase their membership fees at some point in the next 12 months, and the stock historically has traded well in anticipation of that event. So that's the show for today. I'm Jeff Marks. We'll see you tomorrow.